The entire Galactic Council watched live as Earth's top diplomat was punched in the face by a 7-foot-tall reptilian slaver, stuffed into a glowing meat pod, and launched into hyperspace while her translator screamed, "This is not standard negotiation protocol." 10 minutes earlier, Ambassador Meredith Tran had been trying to decide if the Zaric throne room smelled more like fermented urine or a dead starfish. She leaned slightly forward in her ceremonial robe, struggling to suppress a yawn as the 30th trade clause was recited in a voice so dry it could sand a plank of wood. Across the opulent obsidian table, Emperor Carrick IV blinked both sets of eyelids slowly, like he was also reconsidering his life choices. Meredith tapped her earpiece and whispered, "Tell Earth to beam me out of here if he says interstellar neutrality one more time." Her assistant, off-screen, responded with a nervous chuckle. She was joking. Probably. Then everything went sideways. Without warning, a squad of Zaric mercenaries burst through the crystal glass entryway with disruptor rifles and gravity nets. Meredith stood, alarmed but not panicked. She'd handled coups before. Usually someone tried to poison the champagne. But this was different. They weren't just staging a political protest, they were after her, specifically. One guard, covered in ceremonial armor repurposed as makeshift riot gear, tackled her to the ground while another snatched her translator by the collar and flung him into a fruit display, which exploded into a sticky, sparkly mess. The Imperial Guards barely flinched. Either they were in on it, or the Empire had cut its defense budget again. Meredith shouted into her comms for emergency extraction, but the signal was jammed. They zipped her into a stasis pod the shape of a pear and just as cramped, leaving her only enough room to flip one very diplomatic middle finger at the cameras before the pod fired into orbit. Earth's military command center exploded into a frenzy. The Galactic Peace Accords, Earth's shaky alliance with the Zaric Dominion, the fragile interstellar balance, all of it was unraveling by the second. Generals screamed. Analysts scrambled. Politicians argued. Conspiracy theories bloomed in real time. Why her? Why now? And why in front of the entire diplomatic live stream? That's when the president entered the room, sipping coffee like it was just another Thursday. She surveyed the chaos, sighed once, then calmly said, "Send the operative." "You know who?" Every voice stopped. One general dropped his coffee. A young analyst whispered, "You mean him?" Back in a wind-beaten training facility on Europa, a man known only as Jun Park had just finished meditating under a waterfall made of methane ice. His comm implant buzzed. He opened one eye, listened, and exhaled sharply. The wind howled around him as he stood, steam rising off his bare arms. He reached into a lockbox buried in the snow and retrieved a long, black case. The kind of case you open when things have officially gone to hell. Jun didn't talk much. He didn't need to. His reputation did most of the heavy lifting. Former Black Ops, trained in 10 Earth martial arts and at least 3 alien ones. Augmented reflexes. Multispectrum vision. Could slice through a starship hull using a blade made from dark matter and sarcasm. Last recorded words during a mission. "I told you not to poke the grenade." When Earth needed someone rescued, extracted, or erased, they didn't send an army. They sent him. Within the hour, Jun stood before the Earth Interstellar Security Council. Someone tried to brief him. He held up a hand. "She alive?" "Yes." "Confirmed status." "Coordinates?" "Slavers Archipelago, Outer Rim. Fortress-class prison orbiting a black dwarf. No defenses on the outside. All on the inside. 1,000 guards, 5 exits, only one known to lead out. And I'll find her," Jun said flatly. The entire room exhaled in unison, as if they'd all been holding their breath since his arrival. As Jun turned to leave, an older woman stepped forward, one of the lead intelligence directors. Her voice was quiet, but firm. "She's carrying something. They don't know it yet, but if they scan her too deeply, they'll find it." Jun paused. "What?" "Access codes to the Stellar Defense Net. Hidden in her neural implant. Earth's planetary shield. If they crack it, they could open a hole right through our orbital defenses. Jun's knuckles tightened slightly. Then I'd better get to her first. He left without another word. Half a galaxy away, inside her pod, Meredith Tran floated in darkness. The stasis had slowed her thoughts, but not stopped them. Her fingers twitched slightly as the sedation wore off. She replayed the last moments of the conference, trying to piece together what went wrong. It wasn't the Zaric. Not entirely. No, this felt coordinated. She'd seen that look on the Emperor's face, surprise, yes, but not confusion. He knew it was coming. Or at least someone in his inner circle did. Her breath fogged the inner glass. The pod jolted suddenly, docking into what she assumed was a prison bay. Welcome to Slaver's Archipelago. Population, too many and none of them friendly. She braced herself. She was good at playing the game. But she also knew Jun Park might already be coming. And if he was, the slavers were in for a very long, very painful night. Back on his stolen cruiser, Jun reviewed blueprints and prisoner layouts while an unhelpful ship AI named Cho offered him uplifting quotes from ancient Earth philosophers. Be the change you wish to see in the galaxy. It chirped. Jun muttered. Be silent, or be deleted. Okay. But just so you know, deletion is technically a form of silencing. The ship shuddered into hyperdrive, and Jun tightened the grip on his blade. Somewhere in the void between stars, the most dangerous man in the galaxy was on his way. And for the slavers, negotiations were over. Jun Park stepped off the stolen Zaric cruiser like he owned the entire asteroid, despite the fact that every bounty hunter, mercenary, and flesh trader within a kilometer radius had some kind of price on his head. His boots crunched over the metallic platform of Corgat 7, a shadowport nestled deep inside a hollowed asteroid where morality was as rare as breathable air and twice as expensive. He wore no insignia, no armor, just a long, tattered cloak and a pair of mirrored shades that reflected everything except what he was thinking. The first person to recognize him, a Grogari thug with a mechanical tail and a too loud laugh, wisely turned and walked the other way. The second person, a drunken vendor trying to sell genetically engineered pets that doubled as cutlery, wasn't so lucky. Jun knocked him out cold with one elbow tap to the solar plexus, took his data pad, and kept walking like it was part of his morning routine. Inside the market dome, colors pulsed like nightclub strobes. Alien voices shouted over each other in 17 different dialects. Stalls advertised things Jun didn't want to imagine. He weaved through the chaos with calculated calm, absorbing everything: the flicker of a camera drone overhead, the telltale scent of burning plasma from someone being quietly incinerated in the back alley, and the subtle shift in energy when someone started following him. He let it happen for a bit. Let them get confident. Then he turned down a side corridor lined with closed stalls and rusting signs. As soon as the footfalls behind him sped up, he moved. 1 second he was walking, the next he was behind his would-be assailant, grabbing the alien by the neck and slamming them into a wall. Easy, the creature choked, flailing. I'm a fan. Name. Reason. No, Jun said. The alien's hands went up. Keys. Hacker. I saw you land. Thought maybe you could use help. Jun frowned. Keys was a wiry, three-eyed being with cybernetic implants running down his arms and a nervous twitch that made him look like he was constantly dodging invisible insects. He talked fast, moved faster, and smelled vaguely like burnt wires. Jun didn't like him, which meant he might be useful. You know the Slaver's Archipelago? Jun asked. Keys blinked his 3 eyes in sequence. Know it? I've been trying to get out of there for 6 years. Got arrested for pirating Imperial tax records. Real crime was making them look dumb. Why? They have someone I need, Jun said. Keys grinned. Then you're going to need me. Jun considered breaking his nose just to make a point, but decided against it. Time was short. Meredith didn't have long. If the slavers scanned her neural implant and cracked the defense net, Earth's planetary shield would be compromised, and half the galaxy would be knocking on Earth's door with plasma cannons and bad intentions. He let Keyes go, handed him back the datapad, and said, "You talk too much." "People tell me that," Keyes chirped. They slipped aboard a shuttle bound for the Outer Rim, posing as slaver recruiters. Keyes forged the IDs with an impressive speed that made Jun suspect he'd done it more than once. The ship was a cramped, rusted carrier that smelled like old meat and regret. They sat in silence most of the trip, except for when Keyes couldn't help himself. "So you're him, right? The guy who blew up a cartel stronghold with a toothbrush? The ghost of Europa? The one who assassinated a governor by sneezing?" Jun ignored him. "Right, cool, love the mystery vibe." Hours later, the archipelago came into view. It was worse than Jun remembered. A sprawling prison complex built into a ring of shattered moons, orbiting a black dwarf star that had long since stopped giving light. The structures were jagged, improvised, and terrifyingly efficient. Every section had a different architectural style, stolen from worlds the slavers had ravaged. It was a monument to cruelty and opportunism. The outer docking bay was strangely unguarded, which immediately set Jun on edge. As they landed, a distorted voice greeted them through the comms. "State your business." Jun clicked on the transmitter. "New recruits." Slaver Council ordered them. There was a pause then. "Proceed." "Any funny business and we eject your organs into space." "Friendly bunch," Keyes muttered. They entered through a decompression chamber and emerged into a dimly lit corridor filled with armed guards, cameras, and that same faint stench of desperation that hung in every prison. Jun kept his hood low, face unreadable, movements relaxed but purposeful. He let Keyes do the talking. Apparently, Keyes had once built the prison's surveillance grid, before they decided he was too smart to live and locked him in a storage crate for 3 weeks. Now, he navigated the halls like a local. They passed cells filled with creatures Jun couldn't even identify, some crying, some laughing, some staring blankly through the reinforced barriers as if dreaming of death. The further they went, the worse it got. Torture chambers disguised as interrogation spas. Auction blocks already prepped for the next round of sales. And then they found her. Meredith Tran sat in a containment field, looking utterly bored. Her robe was tattered, one eye bruised, but her posture was still regal, her chin still lifted. She noticed Jun instantly and didn't bother hiding her smirk. "Took you long enough." Jun stepped forward. "Had to stop for snacks." Keyes blinked. "You two know each other?" "Childhood," Meredith said. "He was taller back then." "You were louder," Jun replied. Any reunion joy was cut short by the sudden slam of lockdown alarms. Red lights blared across the corridor. The slavers knew. Or maybe someone had known all along. From the far end of the hall came heavy footsteps, each one echoing like a death knell. Jun turned toward the sound, hand drifting to his blade. Keyes cursed in 3 different languages. From the shadows emerged a giant in full exoarmor, 6'8", a cybernetic arm, and eyes that glowed red through the visor. "Hello, Park," said the figure. "Been a while." Jun's eyes narrowed. Briggs. Briggs had once been Earth's top marine. Now he worked for the slavers, sold his loyalty for power and control. He cracked his knuckles and gestured to the guards behind him. "Hand over the ambassador. She's worth a fortune, and honestly, I've been waiting to punch you for years." Jun looked at Meredith, then at Keyes. "Hold your breath." "What?" Jun flung a mini EMP grenade at the lights. Darkness swallowed the hallway. In the confusion, he moved. One moment Briggs was sneering, the next Jun's blade was carving sparks across his armor. The guards opened fire. Meredith hit the floor. Keyes screamed. The rescue had officially gone loud. The slavers' archipelago wasn't designed to be escaped. It was designed to break people in silence, to grind down hope with a mechanical efficiency that made even execution seem merciful. Every corridor was a trap. Every guard was both sadist and loyalist. Every camera, every whisper, every flicker of light could mean death. So the fact that June, Keyes, and Meredith were still breathing after 3 minutes of full lockdown meant one thing and one thing only: they were being allowed to run. June knew it the moment he led them into the maintenance tunnels, slicing through the ventilation hatch with a magnetic cutter. The guards hadn't pursued directly. They'd boxed them in. Herded them. Somewhere deeper inside the maze of this prison, someone was watching. Someone wanted to see what Jun Park could do. And worse, they were smiling about it. Meredith was trying to move quickly, but the bruises were catching up to her. Her leg was stiff from a nerve disruptor blast. She didn't complain. She never did. She just grabbed a metal rod from a discarded tool rack and limped with deadly resolve. Keyes, for all his twitchy antics, managed to keep pace, though he muttered profanities under his breath like a metronome. The tunnel narrowed until it spat them out into a service corridor behind one of the auction galleries. They pressed against the wall as the sounds of a crowd echoed through the air vents, cheering, bidding, jeering, and something that sounded like a cow being strangled. "Lovely," Meredith whispered. "This place still smells like wet crime." Keyes peeked through a crack in the metal plating. "That's the main auction floor. We're about 50 meters from the central spire. If we can get through the maintenance core, we can hotwire an old evac drone and blow a hole in the outer ring." "Simple," June said dryly. "Laugh all you want," Keyes said, tapping his implant. "But the alternative is going out through the front gate with a target on our heads the size of Jupiter." June turned to Meredith. "You up for moving fast?" She grinned, eyes flinty. "I've spent the last 3 days pretending not to break a guard's arm every time he fed me. Let's move." They slipped through the maintenance hatch into the spire's support shaft. Every few steps, an energy surge pulsed along the walls, making Keyes' implants sizzle and flicker. At the base of the spire, a single control node sat unguarded. 2 unguarded. June crouched, scanned for traps, and noticed the pressure plates on the floor. He motioned silently to the others, then vaulted across like a shadow in wind. Behind the console, Keyes tapped into the system. His fingers danced like a man playing 4 instruments at once. Codes scrolled across his retinas. His smile faded. "They're not just letting us go," he said. "They're streaming us. Live. Every slaver faction in the quadrant is watching us like some kind of twisted entertainment show." Meredith's face darkened. "They want to see the humans beg." June spoke softly. "Then disappoint them." A grinding noise roared above them. Doors to the shaft began slamming shut, one after another. Keyes cursed and locked the exit manually. 10 seconds, he barked. June grabbed Meredith's arm and they dove through the narrowing gap just as the doors slammed shut behind them, missing their heels by inches. On the other side was a dim corridor, straight, narrow, and empty. Which was never a good sign. At the end of the hall, a figure stood alone. The slaver general. She was tall, lean, and elegant, wrapped in deep crimson armor etched with gold. Her helmet was shaped like a skull and her voice echoed through the corridor like distant thunder. "You are far more entertaining than I expected," she said. June stepped forward. "If this is where you offer us a choice between death and slavery, save your breath. I'm not here to offer you anything," she said. "I'm here to remind you of what you already know. Earth betrayed her." Meredith flinched slightly. The general raised one hand. A hologram flickered to life, showing a secret transmission, Earth military intel, dated a week before the kidnapping. Project Deadlock. Objective: sacrifice Ambassador Meredith Tran to bait the slavers into aggressive action. Activate Park as a contingency. Use diplomatic fallout as justification for planetary-scale militarization. Meredith stared at it. At the official seal. At her own name marked with the word expendable. Keyes went quiet. Even June took a second before speaking. "I never saw that file." "You weren't meant to," the general said. "You're just another tool they sharpened in the dark. You could have killed her days ago," June said coldly. "Why keep her alive?" The general tilted her head. "Because she's carrying the defense net codes. We want Earthshield down. But not destroyed. We want control. Meredith took a shaky breath and stepped forward. I don't suppose surrender buys us time? The general laughed softly. No, Ambassador. But it will be excellent television. She raised her hand and 3 armored guards stepped into view behind her. Jun moved first. The hallway exploded into violence. Jun became a blur, kicking off walls, slicing across torsos, parrying plasma blades with his forearm shield and returning fire with surgical strikes that sent sparks and limbs flying. Meredith held her own, bashing one guard in the head with her metal rod before stealing his weapon and blasting another. Keys rolled behind cover and triggered a feedback loop that caused the lights to strobe and burn out, cloaking the fight in chaos. In the flicker of emergency lighting, Jun went for the general. They clashed, blade against blade, strength against skill. The general was fast, faster than he expected, her armor reacting to his strikes before he made them. He adjusted. Dropped low. Used the echo of her footsteps to predict her movement, then slammed his fist into the weak spot behind her knee. She staggered. But instead of falling, she laughed. You're good, Park. But you're not as ruthless as they trained you to be. He responded by slamming her into the wall. No, he said. I'm better. She dropped, unconscious. Meredith was already rerouting the power grid. Keys overrode the blast doors. I've got a way out, he said, breathless. Old launch pad. Used for shipping cargo drones. It's unguarded because they think it doesn't work. Jun helped Meredith through the final door, into a loading bay that opened to vacuum. One drone remained. Burnt. Scarred. But flyable. They climbed aboard. Jun looked back once, at the sprawling prison they'd torn through. At the broken general behind them. At the storm brewing in their wake. The ship launched. But none of them felt like they'd won. Not yet. The drone rattled like a dying animal as it punched through the outer rim of the Slavers' archipelago, breaking free from its orbital gravity just long enough to hit the void and engage the emergency propulsion. Inside the cramped cabin, wires sparked, oxygen filters coughed, and the floor panel refused to stay down, exposing a half-dead battery wrapped in duct tape and what appeared to be chewing gum. Keys was swearing at the controls in 5 languages, occasionally banging the console with the heel of his palm, which somehow seemed to help. Jun sat near the entrance hatch, one hand gripping his blade, the other pressed against the deep gash across his ribs that was beginning to burn. Meredith, slumped beside him, stared silently at her hands, which trembled despite her best efforts. No one spoke for several minutes. The drone shook violently as it cut through the debris field left from a long-forgotten pirate battle. Sparks sprayed from the wall, showering Jun's boot. Keys cursed again, then whooped as the ship finally stabilized, blinking back into sublight flight with a lurch that knocked everyone sideways. They were free. For now. But the silence wasn't relief. It was tension. Meredith finally broke it. Her voice was low, ragged. They planned to kill me. Jun didn't answer right away. He didn't have to. She already knew. They sent you, she continued. With a kill order, didn't they? Jun looked up. His face was unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe? Maybe something colder. I was supposed to extract the codes, he said. If you were dead, so be it. Keys stopped fiddling with the controls and turned around slowly. That's comforting. But I didn't know the whole plan, Jun added. Not until the general showed me that file. They never told me you were the bait. Meredith leaned back, head resting against the wall. They wanted war. The slavers have been a thorn in Earth's pride. If the galaxy saw the slavers attack a human ambassador, it'd be the perfect excuse to retaliate. But they needed me alive long enough to transmit the access codes. They rigged your implant, Jun said. The codes are tied to your neural pattern. Only you can unlock them. Keys threw his arms up. And you guys say I'm paranoid. No wonder I live in an asteroid. Jun stood, ignoring the pain, and stepped toward Meredith. I'm not following that order. Good, she said without looking at him. Because I'm not dying for Earth's politics. They both knew it wasn't over. Escaping the prison was only part of the game. Now they were fugitives from both sides. Earth's Black Ops division wouldn't just let them walk away. Hades, the shadow organization that orchestrated the operation, would already be deploying retrieval squads, possibly a kill team. And the slavers, humiliated on their own turf, would want their revenge. Meredith was no longer just an ambassador. She was the most valuable, and dangerous, piece of data in the galaxy. And Jun? He was the last person standing between her and total annihilation. The drone buzzed with a proximity alert. Key's eyes widened. We've got company. Jun was at his side instantly. The radar screen showed 3 fast-moving blips closing in from behind. Sleek, angular ships. Small. Deadly. Jun didn't need to read the signatures to know what they were. Ravens, he said flatly. Keyes paled. Wait. Ravens? Like Earth's covert wetwork division? The ones who make corpses disappear and leave inspirational quotes behind? They're very efficient, Jun said. And very persistent. The first shot clipped the wing of the drone, sending it into a tailspin. Jun grabbed the emergency controls while Keyes rerouted power to the stabilizers. Meredith held onto the wall and tried not to vomit. The comms crackled to life with a distorted voice. Operative Park. This is Commander Lyra Voss. You are harboring a compromised asset. Power down and prepare for boarding. We'll make it quick. Jun's jaw tightened. Lyra. Of course it was her. Former partner. Former lover. The one person who could match him in speed, skill, and stubbornness. Her voice hadn't changed. Cold steel wrapped in velvet. Dangerous, because she made murder sound like mercy. No, Jun said into the mic. There was a pause. Then static. Then laughter. You always did love a bad idea? The next barrage came harder. Jun veered the drone into a nearby asteroid field. The rocks offered cover, but the ship wasn't built for this kind of maneuvering. Keyes redirected the thrusters while shouting obscenities. Meredith clambered to the weapons console and fired back, surprising both men with her accuracy. Diplomatic training, she said, smirking slightly. You trained to shoot people in diplomacy? Keyes asked. I was on the Mars frontier. Things were different. Jun guided the drone through a narrow crevice, forcing the pursuing ships to scatter. One clipped a boulder and exploded in a silent fireball. 2 more remained. Then Lyra's ship dove in from above and latched on with magnetic clamps. Boarding protocol initiated. They're coming in, Keyes said. I can't shake her. Jun stood, flexed his fingers, and picked up his blade. Then we don't run. The airlock hissed. The lights flickered. Meredith armed a charge at the main door and backed away. Jun waited, eyes locked on the entry point. It opened with a slow hiss, revealing Lyra in full combat gear. Her helmet retracted, revealing sharp features, piercing eyes, and a small, familiar smirk. You're out of practice, Jun, she said. You're out of time, he replied. They clashed. Blade to baton. Strike to strike. The small cabin exploded into motion as Lyra's squad rushed in, but Keyes triggered the drone's internal defenses, low-grade turrets that at least bought them time. Meredith covered the rear. Jun and Lyra fought in a blur of motion, history spilling out between each blow. You could have left with me, she said, parrying a thrust. You joined Hades, he snapped. You stopped choosing right. She's a liability, Lyra hissed. You know how this ends. Jun kicked her back. Only if I let it. He moved faster. Used her own weight against her. Disarmed. Knocked her unconscious. The other 2 agents backed away slowly, hands raised. We're just contractors, one muttered. Not dying for a paycheck. The drone, barely holding together, was now free. They jettisoned Lyra and the others in a stasis pod, setting coordinates for a neutral port. Keyes sighed in relief. Meredith sat, breathing hard. Jun patched up his wound and looked at her. We're running out of places to hide. Then we stop hiding, she said. We make them regret trying to kill us. Keyes blinked. Oh, fantastic. We're going to war now. Great. The drone limped into Zaric's space looking like it had already lost whatever war it was supposed to fight. Its hull was scorched, rear thrusters coughed exhaust like a dying dragon, and the communication relay blinked with a lazy, half-dead pulse. But it crossed the border anyway. Jun knew they'd be intercepted, probably within minutes, but he didn't slow down. If anything, he angled the drone to make it easier to detect. They weren't sneaking in anymore. They were sending a message. Meredith sat beside him in the cramped cockpit, silent but alert. Her hands rested in her lap, but her eyes were locked on the void ahead, calculating. Keyes, slouched on the floor with wires wrapped around his legs and a data pad plugged into his chest rig, looked up and muttered something entirely inappropriate under his breath. A Zaric destroyer appeared ahead, sleek and thorny like a predator grown in a nightmare. It dwarfed the drone, positioning itself directly in their path. Weapons didn't lock, but the implication was clear. You stop now, or you don't stop again. Jun slowed the craft. He opened a channel and waited. A voice came through after several seconds. Smooth. Male. Regal, with that practiced accent Zaric royalty used when addressing beings they considered slightly below lichen. You are in restricted Dominion airspace. Identify or be destroyed. This is Operative Jun Park, Earth Intelligence. With me is Ambassador Meredith Tran. She has information relevant to Zaric internal security. Immediate audience requested with the Emperor. The line went quiet. Jun leaned back. They'll stall. Probably bring out a negotiator first. Maybe a kill team dressed like one. But the reply came fast. You have 5 minutes. Docking port 2A. If this is a trap, you will die first. Meredith smirked faintly. That's almost polite by Zaric standards. The drone shuddered as it was tractored into the destroyer. They docked inside a chamber bathed in gold and obsidian lighting, like a cathedral built for war. Zaric guards, tall and insectal, flanked the entry ramp with weapons holstered but eyes very alert. Jun stepped off the drone first, weapon visible but sheathed. Meredith followed, head held high despite the visible bruises. Keyes came last, fiddling with a translation earpiece and muttering how this was either their bravest or dumbest move yet. They were led down winding hallways to a throne room where Emperor Carrick IV sat, adorned in ceremonial armor and a crown of neurofilaments that shimmered with ambient energy. He looked at Meredith with a blend of interest and mild amusement, then shifted his gaze to Jun. We expected your corpse, not your presence. Jun bowed slightly. You'll be disappointed on both counts. Meredith stepped forward, speaking with all the weight her title once carried. We have proof first staged my abduction to justify a full-scale military expansion. Your slaver faction played their role, but you were not the intended victor. Earth was. Carrick's eyes narrowed. Bold claim. She held up a device and activated the stolen Hades file, projecting it in front of the throne. The Emperor leaned in. His advisors hissed and muttered as line after line of betrayal played out in digital clarity. Jun added, they were planning to strike you before your council could even regroup. They used her as bait and me as the weapon to clean up the mess. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then he stood. Slowly. Deliberately. Bring me Counselor Vrax. Now. A few guards left immediately. He turned back. We had suspected treachery within our own ranks. You have given us cause to clean house. But what do you want in return? Meredith didn't hesitate. Peace. No more slave markets. No more war by proxy. No more human bargaining chips. Help us take down the slaver faction and we'll give you something better than war, humiliation for Earth's traitors. Carrick chuckled. Diplomats. Always so dramatic. He leaned forward. But I like dramatic. Within the hour, they were aboard a new vessel, an Imperial dreadnought, outfitted with Zaric stealth tech and enough firepower to level a moon. Meredith worked with Carrick's advisors to prepare a message to Earth's Interstellar Council. Keyes dug through encrypted files, linking key Hades operatives to black-budget projects designed to destabilize galactic relations. And Jun, in silence, prepared for what came next. They were going to use the very tool meant to destroy Meredith to destroy Hades instead. The implant inside her held access not just to Earth's shield system, but to a code layer the slavers didn't even realize they'd been given. A backdoor. One that could be turned against the ones who built it. Jun stood in the Dreadnought's comms bay as Meredith activated the override sequence. Alarms rang on Earth's side before anyone could respond. Within minutes, Hades' headquarters, a station orbiting Saturn's second ring, was exposed. Coordinates. Transmission logs. Operative networks. Earth's fleet scrambled to defend it. But the Zaric were faster. The Dreadnought emerged above Saturn like a divine punishment. Hades fired first. Jun responded with a series of target codes that sent Earth's automated defenses into confusion. Lasers turned inward. Shields failed. The Dreadnought charged its main cannon. Meredith stood by Jun's side, watching the screen. "They're trying to jam the transmission," she said. Jun nodded. "Let them try." Keyes pressed the final command. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the Zaric ship and struck Hades' HQ dead center. The station imploded in on itself, the vacuum swallowing it in silence. Not a single escape pod was launched. Jun lowered his weapon. Meredith exhaled. It was done. But the aftermath was only beginning. They returned to a galactic council that looked at them with suspicion, admiration, and no small amount of fear. Earth denied everything. Of course they did. But the data had already spread. Independent systems began calling for reforms. The Zaric Dominion declared the end of institutional slavery, launching their own internal purge. The balance of power had shifted, violently, but perhaps for the better. Jun declined every medal, every ceremony, every interview. He vanished back into the stars, into the quiet. Meredith stayed behind. She became the first liaison between Earth and Zaric, a position with no precedent and even less comfort. But she stood tall, never once flinching. Keyes sold their story to a galactic podcast and became obscenely wealthy. He later launched a spin-off holo-series that Jun pretended not to watch. And somewhere, in a small bar on a forgotten moon, a katana hung behind the counter. The bartender, a smiling AI named Cho, served drinks to smugglers and diplomats alike. And whenever someone asked about the blade, he'd grin and say, "If you have to ask, you're not ready to hear the story?"